Hello, everybody. Welcome and congratulations, Claire, on achieving the level of mastery that you have so far. And as we've discussed, and as came out in your stories just now, and fabulous stories too, I'm going to refer back to a few of those in the next few minutes. As we referred back to in those stories, it's not reaching, you don't reach mastery. It's somewhere that you just keep going and can become ever more masterful. So yes, I wrote the book Intentional Mastery, which Claire I know has read and hopefully enjoyed. I suspect she might have done. There's a few stories in there, and I wanted to share one of the stories that's in the book with you today as an example. And you know, the object, I thought, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Let's have a look at the object that I relate to when I talk about and think about mastery for me. And that object, and I'm just going to get to the right place here to be able to do that, is this. It's a Kodak Instamatic camera, which I was given when I was about 15 years old as a Christmas present. And at that time, I knew very, very little about photography. And fortunately, this is a very simple camera to operate. It has a shutter and a dial that you can set to say when you're putting a flash on it. That's about it. There's no focus. There's no different lenses. There's none of that. And I started to take photographs because it was a different era. We were in an era where you pressed the shutter, but you didn't see the result for some time till you got the film developed. And I sometimes think that's a bit like coaching too. You know, I'm a business mentor. I work with people one-to-one, as all of you do. We have our conversations, we listen, we support, we provide insight and advice to our clients. Don't necessarily see the result of that intervention for some time, but we kind of know it's going to deliver something valuable. So that's the Christmas present that set me off on this journey of mastery. And I wanted to share with you what I've learned and developed in that work around the stages of mastery. And when I first got that camera, I knew very little about photography. So I was very much an explorer. And what I needed at that time was knowledge. I seem to remember back in those days, things came with manuals that were physical that you could read. And I probably read the manual. I know that's unusual, but some people do. But I was an explorer. I was hungry for knowledge. How does this camera work? How does this coaching thing that we do, how does that work? We need to, first of all, when we start our journey, understand the facts, the things that support what we're doing. But as we go on, we become a little bit of a novice. And when we're novices, we're honing the skill. We're learning how to do the thing that we do so well, or will eventually do so well. And honing that skill requires a different sort of learning than just learning facts. We're actually making things practical. And in photography, that's about taking photographs. In coaching, it's about asking questions, listening to the answers, working with your supervisors and getting advice on what else could I have done? How else could I have asked that question, and so on. Novices, as they develop that skill, become practitioners. They become people who are good at what they're doing in the contexts that they know. And that's actually, I think, one of the things that separates practitioners from experts. They can do something well, but they can only do it when they have it in the areas in which they have experience. But they're building experience by doing it. And as they build experience, they become masters, become experts. And the experts are able to do that thing in any context. So we've gathered knowledge, we've honed a skill, and we've built experience. And all of those things were filling in a gap. But mastery is more than that, isn't it? I think mastery is where we bring something extra to the party than just having knowledge, skill, and experience. We bring insights as well. And for me, that's what separates the master from the expert, is the ability to bring insights from other aspects of life, from other things that we know, and apply it to the work that we do that is really powerful and excellent. And I loved seeing that glass bowl as one of the objects, and as it was described, still with flaws in it, still not perfect, but with a beauty from those flaws. And I think that ability to see beauty where there is flaw is one of the things that separates the masters from the experts. Being able to use those flaws to help bring beauty. And another one of the examples, the Morden salt, that was fabulous, wasn't it? You know, good chef. There's plenty of us, I'm sure, who would describe ourselves as reasonable cooks. I certainly would, but I'm not a chef. And what the chef is bringing is the insight in just how much of that salt to put in, and testing and tasting and checking. And as you said, it's not the same one time to the next. It's always slightly different because the water's slightly different, or the vegetables are older or younger, or whatever it is that makes a slight difference. So it needs more or less salt. And a cook will put in a teaspoon or a pinch, as they've always done. A chef will put in just the right amount. That's an insight that is taking him from expert to master. Claire knows I quite enjoy a bit of skiing, so I love to see the snowboarding as well. That was fabulous, and I entirely agree there too. When you're just running out of control, the tendency is to lean back, and it's entirely the wrong thing to do. You have to do the counterintuitive thing and lean away from the mountain, and control will come back to you. But when you first try that, it feels all wrong. You have to train yourself to do something that's a bit unnatural. Well, masters know when those things are. They know that it's not unnatural. It is the right thing to do, and they just do it seamlessly, it seems. From practice, yes, but also because they're drawing insights from other things. And I find now that I draw insights from skiing into the mentoring work that I do. I think about pushing people to go a little bit further and a little bit faster than they used to in business as well as on the ski slope. Now, I took that camera and I learned a bit of photography, and I went through some of those stages, and I built up some minor expertise in photography. And a few years later, I was in Paris, and I was walking up from Pigalle to Montmartre, and you come past an underground station in Paris called Abesses. And the Abesses underground station is one of two that are left in Paris, with a Victorian ironwork filigree hood over the stairs that go down underground. 130 years old, something like that. Lovely, beautiful piece of ironwork. And we'd walked past it, and I thought, I should really take a photograph of that. And I turned and took a photograph that changed my view of photography forever. I didn't realize at the time, because I had to get that film developed as well. But when it was black and white film, and I was developing my own black and white in those days. And when I was in the dark room and had developed a negative, I looked at the negative, and I knew then immediately I had something that for me was quite special. It captured something of that moment, of the day. I walked up the hill. It was early in the morning. There was a lot of car noise, horns. You know what Paris is like. There's horns blowing all the time, and quite distinctly French-sounding horns. I can remember the sound of them to this day. And there were cafes that were just opening. So there was that smell of fresh croissant and coffee drifting through the air. And I took this picture, and I was just very fortunate there were people around, but I'll show you in a moment. None of them were in shot looking at the camera. They were all walking away from the camera. And I didn't stage that. It's just how it came out. But it did something special for me. And it has become a picture that's traveled with me for the rest of my life. It sits on our kitchen wall. This is the picture. Now, you may not like it because photographs are a very personal thing. But as you can see, there's the lady walking down into the underground station. There's two kids on roller skates, another lady walking away. There's movement a little bit in that picture. There's the graffiti. It's not clean, it's not perfectly laid out, there's flaws with it, and yet for me it's still, I remember that day like it was yesterday. what that picture did for me was it told me that I could be good at this. It didn't tell me I was good at it. It told me that I could be good at it. And it was from that day that I really started focusing on taking what was just, you know, I was a novice stroke practitioner at the time, and saying, actually, I want to master this. I want to become a good photographer and then a great photographer. So what am I doing about it? Next week, 2 weeks today, I shall be in Dorset with one of Britain's foremost landscape photographers, spending 8 hours with them, costing me a fortune, and I don't care. So, you know, it's an opportunity to be with somebody who is a master of their game, who is at the very top of their game, whose insights will now give me the opportunity to move my photography on another level. But I know that I couldn't take real advantage of that. I couldn't have taken real advantage of that when just after I'd taken that photograph in Paris, because back then I was still a novice and a practitioner. As masters, we have to think about, where are the people we're working with? What do they need right now? And that's another piece of mastery, is that ability to transfer our knowledge when people need knowledge, when they're explorers, to help them to hone their skill when they're novices, to give them the opportunity for experience when they're practitioners, and to help them to find the insights that can lift them even further when they're experts. And too often, particularly from people who've got great expertise but no mastery, I see them getting frustrated with people and saying things like, why don't they get how to do this? Well, it's because you're teaching them in the wrong way. So that, for me, was the very quick whistle-stop tour through intentional mastery. You can't get there without actually choosing to do it. You can't get there without being intentional and being self-reflective and asking yourself the hard questions about, what is my next step? What don't I know? What don't I have the skill in? What don't I have enough experience in? And finding the people that you can go out and spend time with who are going to lift your game to become the very best that you can be. And sometimes when we do that, our peers acknowledge it and our associations acknowledge it. And so once again, congratulations, Claire. To pass that milestone is fabulous. And I know, you know, that there's a lot more work still to do.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, William.